Good day, colleagues. This recording will show you how to create and add the test marks that were manually written by the students. As we know that by default, when the assessments are written on Blackboard, they go and stay on the grade center. But now, in case where the students have written the test manually in the auditorium, in the lab, classroom, anywhere, but manually, then the lecturer is able to upload those marks on the Blackboard system. How do we do that? You go to your course, and then from your course, you scroll down to the control panel. From the control panel, you click on the grade center, and then you click on full grade center. Whilst you click on the full grade center, your grade center will appear like that with the list of students that are enrolled in your course. To create a column, for example, the tests that were written manually, we can call it test 1. You click on create column. The column name, you give it a name. Test, I'm just making an example, test 3. And then you skip the grade center name, you skip description, you come to primary display and the secondary display. On the primary display, you click on the drop down arrow and then you will see all these options here. The two important options here is score and percentage. The primary display is when the students have written their test and then you give them the raw mark. For example, the test is out of 50 and then the student will score 10 out of 50. Before you convert it into a percentage, then it's gonna be a score. So the primary display will be score, which is a raw mark before it has been converted. And then the secondary display will be percentage, which means now when you capture your mark, you will capture 10, and then the system will convert that 10 into a percentage format. In the case now, when the mark has already been converted into a percentage, which means now the primary display will be percentage, and then the secondary display will be none. So now this is now catering for when you have already converted your mark into a percentage for a column. So now let's stick to the one which is the raw mark, which is primary display will be score, and then secondary display will be percentage, and then the system will convert that mark on its own. So the category, you can choose the category, whether it's a test survey, it depends on you. And then the points possible, that is the total mark of the test. So the test, for example, it's out of 50. So now, which means the primary display, which is a score, that is a raw mark, and then the secondary display is a percentage. So if the person gets 10 out of 50, you will capture 10, and then the system will convert that 10 into a percentage format. So the system will say 10 divided by 50 and then multiply by 100, and then it will bring a percentage mark. So that's how the display of mark is. And then the dates, you will leave that. The option yes, this column must be in the grade center for calculations. You show this column to the students. You can say yes when you are done, which means when you say yes, the students will see the column. When you say no, the students will not see the column. So this way, it is advisable that you say no, and then you will be able to say yes when all the marks have been captured. This now will eliminate the questions that will come. Ma'am, where are the marks for test 3? So-and-so have seen their marks. So if you want all your students to see their marks at once, so you will say, do not show the column to the student, so that when you are done capturing the mark, then you can come back and edit and say show the column to the students. Then you show the statistics. We normally say no because it's going to show the average of the test mark. So it kind of confused the students sometimes, the average, thinking that it is their test mark, and it's the average of the test in total. But you decide whether you want to show the statistics of the test statistics. The last button will be submit. Now, after you've created that column, then the column will appear on your gradebook. So you will have to scroll to your right. Then you will see there is the column that has been created. So I'm going to create another column, same steps. You click on create column, and then we give it a name, test 4, 5, and then same steps. Primary display is score because I'm going to enter a remark. Then secondary display is percentage. I just put the mark. The category you can choose, or you can just leave the category. It does not matter. And then calculations, yes, show yes or no. And then the last button is the submit button. So now you are done creating the column. So if you see in your grade book, there are your columns. You are able to arrange these columns. For example, let's assume that you already have assessments that were written here. So you will see all those columns appearing as well. So you are able to rearrange your column. How do we do that? We click on manage, and then we click on column organization. From column organization, these are the columns that are appearing in your grade view or in your grade center. So you can hide, because for example, student ID, you can hide or you can show. Username, because username and student ID are the same thing. So we can hide the username and leave the student ID so that it won't show two columns that are of the same content. Availability, last access, you can hide, or you can show. I can hide the last access. So you choose what you want to hide, you choose what you want to show. Even here from your columns, you can choose what you want to hide or what you want to show. So the rearrangement. So now, if I want test 3 to be below test 1, then I can drag and drop. And then my columns will be arranged in that order. So you are able to hide by selecting the column that you don't want to appear on the gradebook. Then you are also able to rearrange your columns in an order that you want. So for the hide, so when you activated the hide, you click on the drop-down arrow that says hide or show, and then you click on hide the selected columns. So which means now those two columns that we have selected, that is the username and the last name, are now hidden on the grade center view. Then the last button will be the submit button. So after we've made the column organization, if you want to make any changes, remember on Blackboard, there is a drop-down arrow that allows you to edit. So if you want to make any changes on the column, you click on the drop-down arrow, then you click on edit column information. It's going to take you back where you will be able to edit whatever settings that you have set. Now, another thing that we have on the grade center, remember when we want to know how many students, immediately when we are capturing marks, we obviously have students that got below 50%, and then we want that those students to be immediately flagged red when that mark is below 50%, without us having to scroll and check how many got below 50%. So the system is able to do that for us by using the color coding option. So how do we do that? Under manage, you click on grading color code. From grading color code, the first thing that you need to do is to enable the grading color code so that whatever color that you are setting, it appears on your gradebook. We scroll down to the grade range. The grade range, that's where you add the criteria, because we must add the criteria. Normally we use a robot, that is the red, the amber, and the green. So we normally concentrate on the red one. That is with the criteria that says if the student is less than 50%, then the student is currently flagged as being at risk. So that's the criteria that we are setting here. So you can set the criteria according to your assessment requirements. So how do we set that? You click on add criteria. So you can add as many criterions here, but the one that we're gonna stick on is the red one, which is less than. You click on that drop down arrow. If the student is less than what? In my case, it's less than 50%. then what will be the color that is needed there? So the background color that we need is red. So you click on the red color and then you click on apply. So when you click on apply, here is how it's going to appear in your grade center. So if the mark is less than 50%, then that student will be highlighted red like that. Then you click on the submit button. You do that once, and all the marks that you capture, they will fall for that criteria that you have just set. Now, you can start adding the test manually. So you click on the column next to the student name to capture the mark. And then as per your marks in your spreadsheet or in your Word document, then you capture these marks manually. So you just click on the cell next to the student name under that particular column, and then you put the mark there, and then you click on press enter. The minute you press enter, if that mark is below 50%, then that student will be immediately flagged as per the color code and criteria that we have just set. So you can capture, let's say, 3 marks. I'm just making an example here. 14. Yes. So as much as you capture, as long as you keep capturing the marks, then those that fall under that criteria that we have set will have that color code in that your test. So as you capture your marks, then you will be able to get those color codings activated as well. So that's how you capture the marks on the grade center manually. And then lastly, you are able to add the calculated columns within your grade book. That is now when you want to calculate the average, when you want to calculate the weighted columns and all that stuff. The average, which is the combination of all the 3 marks or 4 test marks, which will give you that overall average percentage. So if your DP normally is taken from 4 tests, then continuous assessment in this case is taken from 4 test marks, then you will use created column of average. And then you select all those test columns that you want to do the average of that. And then another one is the weighted column. The weighted column is when you are taking a percentage of each test mark or each assessment to formulate the DP normally. So you will click on the weighted column. Then from the weighted column, the total must be 100%. So you select each test, and then if you have 3 tests that you are going to use, that will count towards the TP. Then you need to divide those 3 tests within a percentage, but the total percentage must be 100%. So if you want to take 25% in test 1, 25% in test 2, 50% in test 3, that will formulate the average, which is the DP, the weighted column, which is the DP of that student, so that the student can be able to go and write the grade hall or the auditorium. So you do that using the weighted column. But now we're just showcasing how to create columns manually and how to add those marks that were written by the students in a manual environment. You want to add them now on the Blackboard space. I thank you, colleagues.